It is Friday, November 18th, 2016, and welcome to this episode of Code Evolution. So I did this async await unboxing video the other day to kind of show off the feature and its use, and it was really just as much a surprise to me, if anything. It wasn't, I was excited about it, and I thought, well, why not do a video on it, and what do you know, it actually works. Well, then after that, I went ahead and spent some time implementing it. So I've got just a couple cases here where I'm actually using it just for fun to kind of make sure that it's working, obviously, and then kind of work out the kinks. And I had a question on that video about like, hey, what the heck is really going on here? And I thought, let me go back in and do a quick video about how this is supposed to work, or at least how you're supposed to use it. Async await has been around for a while, so keep in mind, this is, at least, in C#, for example, keep in mind this is not something that, you can get your head wrapped around in 2 minutes or whatever. You need to try it out, get used to it, and then it'll start to click, and you'll be like, wow, why have I not had this my whole life, kind of thing. Which is, you get the majority of people who comment on async await are like, oh my god, I finally get to use it, it's so cool. So what I have here is I have, these are some gulp utilities that I have that I'm for my build process. So I've got like this get package, and I got this save package, and all it's doing is taking a package JSON here. It's getting the package JSON, and then it's eventually going in and it's saving that package JSON to a dis folder. You can see here, and that's kind of just the only reasons behind these. Now, for simplicity's sake, there's also this, I basically have this utility that turns node streams into promises for kind of like simplicity. And, I probably could have used some other module or whatever, but this works for me, right? I basically can create this kind of promise thing, and it works. So because I'm using a promise here, and so this is the key thing, anything that is a promise, essentially anything that's a venable object, can be waited on, right? So just like if you were to do .then you can also do await. Now I could rewind this code and show you what it looked like, but basically, if you've ever used promises, what you're gonna see is you're gonna see this, and then there's gonna be a lot of .thens until the end of this code, right? It's basically it's gonna take all this code and wrap it in a .then, and effectively, and maybe another .then, like a then, kind of a chain. As you can see here, I have 2 await statements in the save package code, not just one. So, and I have this over here just to kind of show you guys how much more code is being generated in order to make this work in this fashion. So, let's get back here. And so because this is a promise, right? We went and looked here. If you look at the read method, it returns a promise. This is my own promise lib that's part of TypeScript.net. And I'm basically just using that because it works. And because it's because it's something that can be waited on, essentially it's a promise-like object, then you can put await in front of it. Well, what is that actually doing? Well, I'm basically saying, hey, promises promise to return a value, or they're going to basically error, right? It's one or the other. So because you can wait on that, because you have some sort of certainty, then you can basically say, great, well, we can treat this pretty much like synchronous code, right? Because once this is done, give me this value and then move on, right? Now, if you are somebody who's been working with C# and maybe whether you've done, async await or not, the thing to keep in mind is that a promise is pretty much the same. It's the analogous object or class for use in JavaScript, just like a task in C#, for example, right? It's the same thing basically, except you can't really do synchronous waits in JavaScript, which is kind of the downside, but an upside, right? Because we never actually block in JavaScript, unless you're doing something crazy. So it's great to have this non-blocking kind of thing going on. So to manage that, async await comes in, Now, I won't go into all the benefits of this, because considering the fact that asynchronous code has a lot of benefits, because you're managing this kind of scheduler thing going on where one operation might complete and then another one will kind of slip in and take over, a block of time that's empty while you're waiting for something else to finish, right? So here what we have, line by line, basically, I'll go ahead and zoom in a little more. So we'll focus on this. So what happens is this package is basically, it's loading up the JSON and it's returning effectively a JSON object, right? Which is a map, and I can show you here. It's just some typing that kind of declares that it's JSON. I'm being a little overly zealous with my typing here, but that's fine. It's just meant to be kind of cool. And then I just added this in because I was having some weird debugging issues. Just in case this doesn't get found, I go ahead and throw, right? And then we go ahead and loop through any of the keys in the package, and I'm looking for specific fields that I need to strip out. That's what this is doing. I need to prepare this package JSON to go out with my distributions. And so then I add basically the actual dist to the name, and that's what's going to get published on npm. Now the key thing here again is there's the await keyword and there's the async keyword, right? And the general rule is anytime you have an await inside of a function, you have to have an async on the outside. Why is that? It's because you're telling the compiler, hey, this function is going to get some serious state machine rewriting under the hood. Get ready, basically, right? Now, if you didn't have this, right, like I said, if we got rid of await, this would kind of start freaking out, because now I'm getting a promise, and now I'm keying through a promise, and yeah, it's not going to be good. And that went ahead and changed over there. You could, though, like for example, if you look at some of these other methods, let's find you another here. Like this copy readme method it's also returning a promise, but it doesn't have async in front of it. Why? Because it's not waiting for anything. This is basically pipelining a promise, kind of out from the return. So nothing, maybe something happened, maybe nothing's happened yet, but you're getting back this promise that's basically saying, hey, give me this file, and do stuff with it, right? Give it back to me, right? And that's, in this case, yeah, it's just copying, right? It says, hey, copy this here, and that's all that's doing. But it doesn't need, because there's no await function inside here, we don't have to put async on the outside. All right. Now, with save package here, we'll see that there are two await methods. And, in this case, what's happening is phase one, it's saying, hey, and this is really the flow, right? It actually starts with save package, which I pass a dist and I pass a folder, okay? And then we come here, and this goes up to here, okay? And then it calls await on this promise, on this function that returns a promise, and it's just sitting there, and it's basically waiting for this file to come back asynchronously, right? And then when it does, and it gets something, then it does some work, and then it returns this new version of that JSON to the save package, and it returns it here, right? So now we've got this new JSON that we need to save to the file system. Well, here we go. We're gonna go ahead and use this utility to, write asynchronously to the file system, and it's gonna return a promise, right, back. This, if we look here again, I'll just to show you here, I'm returning a promise that doesn't have any return value. It's just saying, hey, you're gonna have to wait for me to do what I'm doing, and then when I'm done, I'll let you know, right? And so with that executed, normally we would do a then, right? We would do like this, then, and that, and blah, 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 right? But because it's a promise, and because we have async await, we can put await in front of it, saying, hey, this promise that doesn't return a value, just wait on it for me. And when you're done, go ahead and continue execution, right? That's the general gist of it. So we've got two times where we basically are going, hold up, wait for that thing to come back. Okay, great, go on to the next line. Oh, hold up, I just gotta save this file, okay? And then after that, come back and go on to the next line. And then lastly, instead of doing another, I could do another await here, believe it or not. I could easily do another await, but I don't need to, because basically I just need to return the final promise that's coming back from this, which is, yeah, it's funny, this is probably even a little bit off in a sense of its typing. But yeah, I could go again and say, hey, you know, await. And that should work as well, right? It's just not necessary in this case. So we'll just go ahead and keep that there. Now let's look at the actual JavaScript code to get a sense of what's really going on here. Now keep in mind, let's start by looking at save package, which is the entry point, and it's the smallest function here, right? It blows out to all of this. You've got the same, you know, you've got your parameters, you've got some of the setup for the, you know, for the defaults, and then you're calling the awaiter. Now the awaiter, if we go look at that code, all right, let's see if it'll let me go in here. There we go. So I've copied in, this is the awaiter code broken down into TypeScript. And don't worry about it, but basically it's kind of what says, hey, you know, I have this, actually this is going to get really complicated if I try to explain it. So I don't want to overload you guys this, but the general gist of it is the awaiter and the generator work together to create this state machine, where the generator is essentially going from the different steps. The generator is managing the different steps. Essentially, like if you could do the same thing with a yield statement in a generator or an iterable, right? And say, hey, once you've done this, okay, go on to the next thing. Once you've done this, okay, go on to the next thing. That's all this is really doing. And in the process, the awaiter is essentially enumerating through the results and returning those results back in a way through these promises, right? And so it's essentially this kind of promise. The awaiter is like a promise generator that allows for this functionality to happen. And, you know, again, you're consolidating the amount of state down here. So what the compiler is doing with async await in the case of TypeScript is it's taking what you wrote and it's turning it into this state machine. That's pretty much it. And as you can see, you know, if you look at the code, like you can see here where this kind of matches up with this, right? And you can see that there's this sent method that's being called. That's something that's coming back from the generator, right? So it's being like, yeah, hey, go ahead and send me the value. Give me the value is what it's saying of now that we've got this far, give me the value. And kind of go from there, right? So again, this can get really confusing if I keep going too far, so I don't want to go too far. It's something you should play with. It's not for people who aren't really doing any, you know, asynchronous code, right? If you're not really doing anything that requires a lot of asynchrony, then, you know, this isn't something to concern yourself too much with. But it is cool, and it's cool enough to just look at anyway. Even if you aren't doing in that stuff. Now, obviously, if you're somebody who has been doing a lot of asynchronous code or working with promises or something to that effect, you're gonna probably want to just rewrite all your code to use async await, because it's awesome. Now, one thing I didn't mention here, as far as I understand it, and let's go ahead and test this out. Let's say, for example, that there was some error that happened in this promise here, that this function throws or something, right, in somewhere under the hood, or to be more correct, the promise fails. Now this is where it gets really cool. Instead of having this then and then error thing going on, you should be able to do a try catch on this. So let's do just gonna do any for now, okay? Bear with me. I just want to keep this simple. I'm gonna go let package equals this, and then we can do is put a try catch on this guy. And I just want to see what the compiler does, because this is kind of one of the, you know, the things that everybody, you know, was kind of excited about. Oh, what was that? And let's see here. It hasn't finished. I don't think it's finished compiling yet. Oh, look at that. Yep. So now I don't know if you saw the change on the right side here, but you can see now that there's this. Oh, it did it again. There's this thing called tries that's being used, and that's because what's happening now is the state machine is also managing the code in a sense of, managing the promise chain. And if some error occurs, it's going to end up, propagating that outward for you. So this is just a different thing. It's cool. You can write try catches, and it's going to convert it into a usable, basically a usable code that works with asynchronous code, which is really slick if you think about it. You're writing synchronous code, but it's operating asynchronously. That's the real promise of async await, is being able to do that. And that's why it's really exciting. And I hate to use promise as a pun because, well, kind of, it's important. Promise is under the hood, right? So let me finish with one last thing, and that is for people who are using this, there's a lot of variety of possibilities and how to use this. You can use your own promise. You can use your own promise library. You can use the default ones that come with different environments. That's fine. They're ironing this stuff out. The version that I reviewed, 2.11 that I reviewed the other day, is still not. It's still an RC candidate, and they're still doing a lot of work. And in fact, I've actually the version that we're looking at right now. This is running on 2.2 dev for today. And that's just because I wanted to make sure that I was up to date and there wasn't any weird stuff that was being introduced. But keep in mind, it's very flexible. Like, they're working on getting this to a point where you can use your own promise lib, or you can use a global one, and so you're not stuck. You're not restricted. So I think that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. If you guys have any questions, please reach out in the comments. This is one of these things. It's probably one of the most important features to come out in programming, period, especially in an asynchronous world. But it's not easy for anyone, I think, to just, if you have never seen it before, it takes a minute for it to sink in, and it can be a bit difficult to understand. It took me a little while to really grasp how powerful this is, and how it works. And in C#, it's actually even, a bit crazier because of all the schedulers and how they work, and how much more performance you can gain just by using async await. Because in C#, for example, and Java, there's actual synchronous waiting, which is not good for performance most of the time, right? So that's that. Please give me a like, and subscribe if you want to see more like this. Have a good one. Bye.